Okay, and we are all set.
Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for inviting me today, Tina and Bethany and Jack. I really appreciate being here. And thank you, everyone, for being here. So I always like to start with when I was young, just because it kind of gives a background of how it started for me. And I'm not sure if I had an NDE, but I was born 2 months premature. And I was in an incubator for over a month. So, I never really even thought about it until I started coming to sharing groups with IANDS. And I heard about, different people that had very young NDEs. And I listed so many different times that I actually should have died. I had my stomach pumped when I was under 2 years old. My brother fed me a whole bottle of baby aspirin. I thought they were candy. He was 2, I was 1. So I jokingly say my brother tried to kill me when he was 2. And then I had a very high fever, almost 107. And I remember this. I was probably about 2 years old, and I was in a bathtub with ice water. They were trying to get the fever down. It was so high. So just different things like that when I was very young might have set me up for a lifetime of experiences, of spiritually transformative experiences. When I was a kid, I woke up several times feeling frozen in my bed and unable to move, and feeling like there was a presence next to me. And I was very scared because I was raised in a religious tradition that was very, it had a lot of dogma, and they taught us very early on about hell, and that we're going to hell if you're not good. So, I just feared the devil, and I thought that the devil was in my room. I was so scared, and I couldn't move. But when I tried to scream, nothing would come out. And then I just made the tiniest little sound. And when I was able to make that sound, whatever it was released me, and then I was able to move. And that happened to me a few times. And I had some early traumas too during my childhood, where I was out of my body and viewing from above, so that I didn't, I wasn't feeling the pain. I was just, any memory I have of it is me in the corner of the room up above watching what was going on down below. So, and I didn't realize that either until I started coming to the sharing groups and just hearing other people. And I'm like, oh my God, that was like an out of body experience, never really realized that until the last couple years. And then, so what happened with me was, I always knew from a very young age that I was not just this body. Because of those early experiences, I was very aware that I am more than just this physical body. And I remember I had my little prayer book. I was raised Catholic. And I remember when I would say certain prayers in my little prayer book, I would feel very connected to Mother Mary and Jesus. And I felt like whatever it was I was feeling, like, if I felt any sadness or anything like that, it would just go away when I would say these little prayers. I actually ripped out, blasphemy, but I actually ripped out the little favorite prayers that I had, and I made my own little version of my prayer book. So yeah, I still have that today, actually, in my closet with my stuff. But anyway, so that was my early experiences. And it wasn't until I was an adult, really, that I started to really see spirit on a regular basis. When my kids got older and I was, they were, reaching adulthood, most of them. I have 3 children. The older 2 are a lot older than my youngest. But what happened was a gentleman on my job where I was working, sadly, he had committed suicide. And I was very upset, of course. The way he committed suicide was horrific. And I was very upset about it because not only because of the way he died, but because of what went on that job. There was a lot of like political positioning and people trying to go after his job and stuff. And anyway, I was explaining to somebody in a parking lot of a diner how upset I was about these people who were pretending to be his friend, but really they're the ones who pushed him out of his job, and he ended up getting really depressed. And as I was telling the story, he walked right in front of me in a group of people and looked over at me, and as if to say, yeah, I know what's going on, you know? And I remember standing there dumbfounded because as I'm talking about him, I'm like, and oh my God, there he is. And he just, walked by and looked over at me, and my brain, I couldn't make sense of it because he looked just as real as you and I. He did not look like a spirit, like you would, like see through or anything like that. He looked solid. And then I had a dream where he showed up and he was smiling. He was so happy. And he told me that, he's happy and he's fine and not to worry about him and that he knows what's going on. And that was really that was so nice to hear from him. And to hear that he was doing well, because the way he died was just, it was so tragic and so sad. And then after that, a lot of things happened. I was, smelling my grandfather's cigar when I would be talking about him and just all different things like that. And synchronistically, because what I've discovered is synchronicities happen when you're getting in alignment with your call in life or your evolution of your spiritual path. So a friend of mine just, at the same time that I was Googling spiritual groups, right? Like local spiritual groups. I knew I wanted to get involved in like a spiritual group, but I didn't want like the dogma of religions. I wanted a spiritual community. And a friend of mine just called me up out of the blue and she's like, "Oh, Catherine, I went to this spiritualist church and it's not too far from you and I think you would love it. It's all about the golden rule. There's no dogma. It's about taking responsibility for yourself and your own happiness. And they bring in the spirit world and it's just amazing. I loved it. So I said, all right, I'm going to check it out. So I did. And as soon as I walked in there, the medium gave me a message. She asked if she can come to me. And she gave me a message from my grandfather who had just passed that I was having communication with, but I was asking him to help me with one of my children. And I was very worried about one of my children, and I was asking him to please help me. And when the medium got up there, she was answering the questions that I had from my grandfather that I couldn't hear, but she apparently got the memo and was giving it to me. And she described everything about my grandfather. So I knew it was him. And I was just blown away. And I said, I have to learn how to do this. I have to learn how to I could do it, but I wanted to learn how to really connect with spirit and give messages and help people. Because what ended up happening was my grandfather and my spirit team ended up helping me so much with my child that I was getting messages from them, and it was like all this stuff happened, like literal miracles unfolded for my child that would not have happened hadn't I been in communication with them, with my grandfather and my team and God, mostly God. Yeah, and so that really opened my eyes to how God, spirit, our loved ones, our team are around us and they want to help us. And what I learned was that my grandfather heard me every time I talked to him. Every single time I talked to him, he heard me. And that was such an important thing for me to learn. So, so after that, I started to sit in circle every week at the Spiritualist Church, and we would sit in meditation, and we would then give each other messages, and it was called unfoldment. And so I learned, how to connect with intention of bringing through messages that are healing and helpful for others. And so as I struggled at first to learn how to meditate, because my mind was very active. I had a very active monkey mind. There was a million things going on all the time. And so I found it challenging at first, but I was very fortunate in that I had an amazing mediumship teacher. And he would bring us on these guided meditations, and that really helped me to be able to focus, so that my monkey mind would move out of the way. And just being able to focus on that meditation helped my mind to relax. And then once I started to do that, and I learned how to do that, I started to ask to meet my spirit guides. And one morning, as I was waking up, not too long after I learned how to meditate, my spirit guides started showing up. And they started coming to me one after another as I was waking up in the morning. And this was like over a period of months where I was being taken out of body, and I was being taken to different places, like in the cosmos. And I could see all different things. I could see the portals where the angels were coming out of. And another time they took me to this beautiful place in the heavens where I couldn't go any farther, because if I went any farther, I knew I couldn't come back. But there was this love that just emanated out of this flame. It was like this opening in the heavens where there was this flame and this beautiful, I felt like it was God, honestly, but I knew God wasn't that. I knew God was all around and in me and everything, because I was having these experiences of oneness and unity and love that was just infinite. Every cell of my being was filled with this love that was just, there was no end to it. So when my guides started to come to me and they were introducing themselves to me one at a time, my body was also doing these things where it was going into spontaneous yoga positions as I was still laying in my bed. And I don't do yoga in this lifetime. Okay. I'm not a yogi. So I don't know what was happening, but my body knew how to do it. And all of this energy was just like flowing through me. And I remember if I tried to do something, everything would stop. So I just had to let whatever was happening flow through me. And it was amazing. And even my cat, who was, he used to sleep on top of my head. And I realized that he was actually protecting my crown chakra. Okay. So my cat was even going into these spontaneous, almost like cat yogic positions. I know that sounds very far out, but my cat was totally in the energy, because I remember looking over at him. I'm like, whoa, little guys into this too. But I knew that he was protecting my crown. He was very protective of me. And that's where he slept over my head like this every night for months and months before that big awakening happened. So I was having all kinds of experiences. It was like having, it was like being in two worlds at once. I was aware of the physical reality, but yet the spiritual reality was so much more real. And I was talking to, my guides, my loved ones, and I was channeling. At one point, one of my main guides, there were two, Mother Mary and Jesus, that had come, and they were, showing me that there were many others also, but I was merging in with different ones. And when I was in front of them, At one point, I literally turned into a baby in front of them. I was like a little 2-year-old in front of them. And it's hard to put into words because there's so much to it. But they actually, all of them surrounded me, and I was kind of I was in the middle of them, and they were holding up this piece of fabric, and the only way I could describe it was that I was on what seemed like a trampoline because I was jumping up and down. My little 2-year-old body was jumping up and down, and all my guides were around this circle holding this fabric that was like trampoline material, watching me have fun, just jumping up and down. And they were all just beaming up at me with all of this love. And I could feel how much they loved me and how much they enjoyed seeing me have fun, and being this little child that was just trusting of them, And during that time, this went on for hours and hours. There was a being that was talking to me telepathically, and he knew everything about me. He was a very loving, but very intense, but very loving being. And he's the only one that I really couldn't see, or I really didn't know who he was, but I got a sense that he wasn't from here. Like that's the only thing that I sensed about him. But for hours, he worked with me telepathically. And it was like I was going through this initiation or like a test of some kind. And a lot of it was being downloaded into me and going into my heart, just like for me to remember, And there are certain things that I do remember about that. And, I wrote it down afterwards, trying to remember the details. But there are certain things that I don't remember that I know are just, within me because of those downloads. But I didn't know who he was for about a year after that. And anyway, so what happened during that experience, because I was talking to my guides and loved ones, and people around me didn't understand what was happening. Of course, they couldn't see them. And so they were worried about me, and they called a friend, and she came over, and she was a Reiki master. So she kind of thought something was going on with me because I kept doing something like here with my heart. And she said, I just want to, she was concerned, but she wanted to make sure that it was a spiritual thing I was going through. But anyway, after that, a lot of people thought like I went crazy or whatever. Okay. And I could see why, because, I was more in a different reality than I was in this reality. But what I knew was that what I had experienced was the true reality. And this reality pales in comparison to that reality. So I knew that what I had experienced was not like a psychosis or any kind of mental illness of any kind. I knew it was a spiritual phenomena or a spiritual experience that had happened to me. And I just called it a spiritual awakening, because that was the only thing I knew to call it at the time. But then after things calmed down with that energy, I felt like I had failed, because I thought, I was going to stay like that forever, because I was in touch with my true self and I knew who I really was. But that didn't happen. I was back to my earthly ways or my earthly being. But I really felt like I was reborn through those experiences. And so although everything changed, I couldn't hold on to that energy of my self feeling like my true self at that time. And I started to look it up on the computer to put in what I had experienced. And it was so similar to a near-death experience, because I was seeing the white light. I was getting this light that was in my room. It was in my closet. And I was also, having this experience of unity and love and and connection. So all of these experiences were very similar to NDEs, but I didn't have an NDE to have those experiences. But I did read about this thing that happens with people called a Kundalini Awakening. And I thought, well, that sounds similar to what I went through, because I was having a lot of like energy going through my body. And what I felt was like all my chakras opened up, and then my consciousness expanded, and then I was in oneness with the divine. And so, it's hard to say if it was a Kundalini awakening or a mystical awakening or spiritual awakening, but it was profound. And my guides at the time were telling me that they wanted me to understand what happens to people in this part of the world, that they said that many people are going to be waking up, and that in this part of the world, it is not understood when people are having these kinds of spiritual experiences. And so many people are told that they have psychosis, or that they're going through, some kind of mental illness. And that's really not what's happening with them. I mean, there is mental illness and psychosis, but the people that are having spiritual awakenings are often diagnosed as having those kind of issues. So they told me I'm going to be helping people that are waking up, and that this was kind of like an initiation for me to go through. And this was in 2007 and 2008. And so I asked them, well, what am I going to be doing? Am I going to be helping with the church or what? And they're like, a little bit, but, they wouldn't tell me much, but they just said, yeah, you're going to be doing some, you'll do some healing work. And I said, all right, so after that, I just got really hungry for learning about all different kinds of healing modalities. And I learned Reiki and IET and magnified healing and all different, so many different kinds of healing modalities. And until one day I heard about Dolores Cannon, and somebody mentioned her name, and I was just like, who is that? I have to know who that is. And then they told me that she works in the, she works with people with hypnosis and getting them into the hypnagogic state where they're able to communicate and directly channel their higher self, and they're able to get answers to any questions they have, and they're able to access all kinds of healing for themselves. And I was like, oh my God, I have to learn that right away. That's it. I have to learn that. And so, a couple of years went by, and so all of a sudden I'm like, I have to learn this. I have to learn it now. And so I got my level 1 in 2013. And then I went out to Arkansas and I met with Dolores Cannon. She taught a level 2 class. And I was so lucky to be in her very second to last class that she ever taught on earth. So I feel very blessed to have gotten to meet her and talk to her and really, ask her questions and pick her brain and all that stuff, one-on-one. And she's just like she is in the video. She's really, really approachable and really down to earth woman. And I just felt so connected to her and her work. But the reason I knew right away that the work she was doing was true was because I had been working in that state myself. In the mornings when I was waking up, I would just keep my eyes closed and I would ask questions. So right before you wake up, when you're still kind of half asleep, half awake, those were the times in the mornings where I was getting a lot of information, a lot of answers, a lot of symbols, a lot of knowings. I would actually see things being spelt out in front of me. And sometimes I would fall back to sleep and I would have a whole dream about whatever it was I was curious about. And then I would write it down. So one of the things that I have done over the years is I've journaled all of my dreams, my synchronicities, and all of the different spiritual experiences that have happened with me. And that has been really helpful for me in my spiritual journey, because what I've found is that the dream world is really helpful. And if I'm keeping track of it, it really helps me to know what's going on. And I've been really saved so many times in the dream state about warnings and things that are coming up for me. I've been woken up out of a sleep and told, you know, like a very serious thing, and what to do, because I was at a place in my life where it's like, I don't even know how to get out of this. And I woke up one morning hearing loud as could be, a certain thing, direction to take that I would never have even known on my own. And I did it, and boom, everything fell into place like magic, So I'm so grateful that I learned how to do that. And like, my guides have been working with me all these years, and God has been with me. And so that experience, those experiences have helped me to really understand that, we're really all connected, that our team is always with us, that will all I need to do is ask, which I forget sometimes still. Even after everything I've been through, I still sometimes forget to ask, So with that being that was working with me, that I didn't know, that being that was telepathically communicating with me during my big awakening, a year went by, and this was in 2008. So there was a guy that came to our church, our spiritualist church. Now, I had been part of the spiritualist church for 8 years, and I was a medium and also a healer there. So I would do, mediumship for people, and also do hands-on healing and stuff. So one day they had a speaker come in, and he was a contactee, an ET contactee. And anyway, after he gave his talk, I approached him and I just said, I want to ask you about something. I go, I had this thing happen to me, and I told him about the being that was working with me for all those hours, but I didn't know who he was. And he goes, well, why don't you just ask? And I'm like, okay. He goes, yeah, before you go to sleep, ask and see what you get. And that's what I did. I went home. I asked, I said, listen, I knew who everybody else was, all the other guides and stuff, but I really didn't know who you were. And you work with me so intensely. I really want to know who you are. So in the morning, as I was waking up, I saw a disc-shaped UFO. I kept my eyes closed, and that's where I saw a beautiful golden disc-shaped UFO that had windows all along it. And over that was the Merkaba. And above the UFO, and it was an interdimensional ship because it kept going in and out of 3D reality. So it was kind of like almost like disappearing and then appearing again. So I knew it was an interdimensional ship. And then above it, it said the name Metatron. And so at the time, I'm like, oh, okay, thank you. So I didn't know who Metatron was. So then I went online and I looked up Metatron. And Metatron was an archangel, or is an archangel. And he was one of 2 archangels that were at one time a human being. All of the other archangels were never human beings, but Metatron and another one, I forget his name, but they were both human beings, and they ascended, and he ascended into a golden wheel. So I just thought, okay, that is really, really interesting, because he came in with an interdimensional ship. And then what happened with me is I started seeing beings in my meditations that were not from Earth. And so some of these beings, I knew that they were not human. The first one that I ever saw in my meditation, and this was shortly after my awakening, was a feline being. And this being, it was not a cat. It had a feline features, and it had a robe. And I remember thinking, this is, wow, this is interesting. I know, like, okay. And then again, I reached out to that guy that was a contactee, and he said, oh yeah, they're feline beings. I've seen them. And, So I was like, all right, and then over the years, things kind of opened up into where I started seeing more and more different types of beings. And the first ones that really started showing up in the 3D reality were the feline beings. So they were the first ones I saw in my meditation years ago, and then they were the first ones to show up over my house in 2016. And there's a whole big story about that, and I'm not going to go into all of it now, but it has to do with my cat, believe it or not. And my cat had passed, and there's a whole story to that, but he started coming to me and communicating with me from the other side after he passed, and he got attacked by a pit bull from 2 houses down, and I had to put him down. It was really sad. And I had a shared death experience with him. I could feel how much he loved me. He passed through my heart, and I could feel his love, and I couldn't believe how much he loved me. I was just stunned. I was stunned. And the only thing I could equate that kind of love to was the love that I felt from God. That is the closest thing of love, that immensity that I ever felt from anyone, was my cat, the love that he had for me. And God, God's love for me was just, ginormous, for everybody. It's that way. But yeah, so after my cat, I had to put him down, and he kind of guided me to go down to this crystal store, and all this stuff happened. But what happened was I started to say this special prayer of abundance, and I would light this green candle. And then next thing I know, there's all this stuff happening where the beings are morphing out of my ceiling. And Mother Mary showed up in my room, and she's wants me to point my John of God crystal towards my crown. And so I did. I woke up, I just pointed it towards my crown. I had a little altar, and I went back to sleep. And then in the morning, there was this beautiful white feline being that was morphing out of my ceiling and just smiling at me, like, as I just opened my eyes, and I just felt all this love. And I felt that it was a similar energy to Mother Mary. It was a divine feminine energy. And I just said, thank you, thank you, thank you. And then I got up, and then later that day, I was filming in my room. And there was a periwinkle orb. But that was the night before. There was a periwinkle orb, and then Mother Mary had shown up that night. So the next day, I was really, I was having all these experiences because I had just learned how to channel, and I was channeling a collective, but I didn't really know that at the time. And these felines were coming in with this beautiful energy of love. And I felt compelled to go outside and take video and pictures, which I've never done before. I had been in my house 20 years. It was like 12:30 at night, and I couldn't sleep because my energy was like this, because I was so happy and having these expansive experiences. So I went outside and I took like 4 or 5 pictures from left to right, and I took one video from left all the way to the right. And I went in the house and I looked on my phone, and there was this column of light coming down. And then out of the column of light was a disc with a green orb on top of it, like above it. And in my yard were these tubes of light. They were like tubes that were going across my yard. And on my shed was actually a picture of Mother Mary, and I could see her face on my shed to the left of my property. And it was just amazing. And I was talking to my guides. I was having all these experiences like telepathic communication, channeling. And I was asking them about this disc that came out of this column of light that I saw on the video. And I said, I said, what is that? And they go, that was us. Did you like that? And I'm like, yeah, it's beautiful. I go, well, what was that little green orb that was above it? And they go, they told me, they go, wait for it. And I'm like, what? They go, it's the white feline being. And I said, what do you mean? They go, look inside the orb. They go, enlarge the picture and look, you'll see it. So I did. On my phone, I pulled it up, and there in the little green orb above that disc was the face of a feline. And I remember I showed my ex-husband, who was my husband at the time. I'm like, oh my God, look at this, this. And I mean, anyway, it was 111 on the phone. It said 111 because I screenshotted it and I could see it so clear. So I knew all these things that were happening were true, that I wasn't just losing my mind, because I was able to document the different things that were going on. And I was able to see it through the videos and the pictures and the synchronicities and all the different things I was keeping track of. So, so that just kind of opened up to all different kinds of experiences and UFO phenomena that was happening. One morning I was meditating, laying in my bed, and I saw this beautiful crystal UFO fly over my house with my eyes closed as I was meditating. And my whole house shook as this thing flew over my house. And it sounded like a jet airplane had went over my house at the same time I saw this UFO fly over my house in my mind's eye. And I jumped out of my meditation and I was like, oh my God, what the heck? That was unbelievable. My phone started blinking, like my phones weren't working, like the electronics were going wacky. And then I go outside and there's these helicopters flying over. So that kind of comes into play with this stuff sometimes too. But I don't really get nervous about that, because I feel that I have, I know that these beings are so evolved and so beautiful that I feel that I have, like, I'm protected. I'm not afraid of them or anything. They can't really do. I think they're just trying to understand what's happening. And I don't think that they do understand, because I think that the government isn't really too much into spiritual stuff. So they don't really understand about the spiritual phenomena. I think they're trying to understand it, but I don't think that's what their genre is. But yeah, so I know I've been talking for quite a while. So is this a good time to ask if anyone has any questions, or did you want me to continue, or?
I think we still have some time. Could you just kind of share with us how has all this benefited you so far?
Oh, well, so for me, I mean, my whole life changed after I had these experiences. So I started to go to the Spiritualist church and give messages to people. And then I thought I was going to become a Spiritualist minister, but I actually ended up becoming an interspiritual minister. And so my life has changed completely, where, you know, I used to feel like, I guess it helped me really to understand that I chose a lot of my challenges in life, and that everything that I chose was for me to learn from and for me to grow and evolve. And so with that understanding, my whole life really did change. And so now I'm doing things that I love to do. I'm involved with a lot of different sharing groups and helping people in that way, and doing service, like doing the QHHT for people, and also mediumship. I'm not in the Spiritualist church anymore, but yeah, I ended up leaving there and then going to the becoming an interspiritual minister. And then shortly after that, COVID happened. And then everybody found each other online through these groups, which is really nice. But yeah, so what I did come to understand through my journeys is that a lot of these beings, I spoke about the feline beings, but there are so many other kinds that were visiting me and showing themselves to me during this period of time. And what I've come to understand about them is that they are actually my family. They're actually part of my lineage, and that I've had lifetimes with them. And so when I see them, I get really happy and excited, like I'm seeing an old friend or somebody, that I knew, or somebody that I know. I don't feel like it's an alien, I don't feel like it's something, outside of me. I feel like I'm so connected to it. And there's just this heart-centered connection that I have with these different beings. So, but a lot of things that I had to learn, because it hasn't all been fun. There's been a lot of challenges through my life too. And I had to really start to look at what was good for me and what wasn't, and really start to honor that in myself. And so a lot of things fell away that, people that I had in my life at one time that I no longer have in my life. And that's okay, because, I'm honoring who I am, and, no longer really resonate with that. So, yeah, but they were with me during some really challenging times. And like I said earlier, they helped me so much with just, in times when I felt like, I was up in the corner or up against the corner, and there were no answers. They would help me to figure out the next step, so many times. So I know I'm never alone, and I have a whole team that works with me, and we all do, we all do. So everybody's able to connect in with their team and with God and have that connection. So did that answer?
Thank you, Catherine. I'm just glad that IANDS is open for this now.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Thank you. All right. Thank you. Bethany?
Yep. No, I have a question for Catherine. Are we opening for questions?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, great. So Catherine, thank you so much. This absolutely fascinating. I could listen to you talk for a couple more hours, definitely. It's so interesting. It's so different. I wanted to know about your team. That's my first question. I'm sure I'll be back with more questions, but your team, how many people are on your team, and are they all people that you've known in this earth life besides Metatron, like people that you've experienced as human beings on Earth?
Yeah. Well, there's, oh my goodness. So we all have a team, right? And so I've gotten to meet so many different guides and beings over the years that I can't even tell you how many there are, but it's like that for everybody. I'm not special or different. It's just that I guess because I have like an open, I guess my consciousness has opened to a point where they can kind of pop in and I can see them, because I have all the clairs, but one of them is I'm very clairvoyant too. So I've seen all different guides, and the ones that channel through me are called the Council of Light, and they are beings that are they're from Earth, they're from all different dimensions, and it's God, and it's also my higher self. So, and we're all really connected through this bubble of love. And when they speak through me, when they channel through me, I have to record it, because I don't really remember what they say, because I'm a trance channel. So that's one way that I communicate with them, or they communicate through me. And then, yeah, so Did that answer your question, Bethany?
Yeah, no, it begins to. It begins to. Thank you so much, Catherine.
Okay,
You're
so
welcome.
anyone else has a question? Otherwise, maybe Bethany can ask another one. I don't see any. Okay, Kathy Trueheart. All right, go ahead, Kathy.
Oh, well, Catherine, that was just wonderful. Oh, I too could listen for 2 more hours and beyond. Yeah, it's just, I don't even know where to begin. Okay, I'll just start with, so I'm wondering what church you're with. You said, I'm wondering the difference between the interspiritual minister and a spiritualist minister. So I'd like to know the difference between those two, and I'd like to know where you practice now, where you are.
Okay. Well, the difference between, well, you see, it's so hard to, okay. Spiritualism is, it is a religion in this country. Okay. And it's a way of life. And it is based on the understanding that we're all connected and that we're connected to God, right? And that we also all have abilities that we can connect with our loved ones on the spirit side, and that we can actually communicate with them, and that they can help us, and they can come through, and they can still be part of our life, but in a different way, in a way that's different than they were when they were here. And we can keep the communication open, and we can keep that relationship going. And it's a beautiful religion. There's no dogma. It's really about the golden rule: do unto others. And they also have inspirational speakers that come in and speak, and they have mediums that do platform work. And that's what I did for several years at the Spiritualist Church, and give messages to people from their loved ones. Yeah, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful religion. And interspiritual is a little different in that they don't really have that in their service. They're not really connecting to the spirit world in a way where they're communicating with deceased loved ones, but they are very open to all aspects of the highest truths in all religions and faith traditions, which is love and that divine connection through the heart. And so that's why I became an interspiritual minister, because I felt that, well, I was guided to do it, first of all, but I also felt that it was more, it was more open and expansive to everything, like open to everything and everyone and all traditions, the highest truths of all traditions, which is love and unity. And if you look at all the different religions and faith traditions that are, that are true, right? That's what they all have in common. There's that common thread where there's that person that had that connection to the divine, and that's that love connection, that infinite love connection, and teaching about love, and that's where they all come together. So yeah, that's my understanding of it, the best I can say.
Someone asked for a website for the church, and where do you practice this? Is there a specific place that, I know you live in Long Island, right?
Yeah, well, I don't go to a church. It was part of my training, and I was guided through my my inner awareness and my team to go through that seminary program. But I knew that I wasn't going to, I knew that I was not going to do a traditional interspiritual fellowship, because that is not a interspiritual is not a religion, it's a way of life. Okay. And so, there are interspiritual fellowships, they call them, and there's not a lot of them, but I knew that what I would do with my training would be very different than what had already been done, because I knew that my path was really for people that were having spiritual experiences and people that were also opening up to their cosmic families and their connection with these beings of love. And so so my ministry is really helping people that are experiencers and working with experiencers. And so I have my 3 groups that I have right now. My UFO ET experiencers, it's a speaker question and answer group, which is on the 2nd Tuesday of the month.
Yes.
A safe space sharing group, which is where we get together and we share about our spiritual experiences. It could have anything to do with, UFO ET, angelic, mediumship experiences, consciousness experiences, unitive experience, everything, is in there. And those I have the 1st Tuesday of the month. And then the 3rd Tuesday or the 4th Tuesday of the month, I have spiritual experiencers, which is a speaker question and answer group also. So those are all on Zoom.
Very busy lady.
Yeah. And then I'm also going out with IANDS and I have, we're doing they just started up a UFO ET NDE sharing group. And that's on the 1st Wednesdays of the month. And I'm also a facilitator for them for their regular sharing groups, their spiritual experiencers sharing groups, NDE sharing groups. And I also help out with Spiritual Awakenings International, and I help out with their sharing groups too. So I guess that's my thing.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, that's my thing right now. So thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Bethany, you had your hand up, and then Luann.
Yep. My question is, thank you so much for that, Catherine. And I love how you exemplify this 12th step in our NDE integration, which is when you're ready, be a support to others. I think that's just, you are such a tremendous support to people who've had unusual experiences like these. So thank you for that and your service. You mentioned that you learned Reiki, IET, and magnified healing. And I don't know what IET is. Can you explain?
Yeah, that is a healing modality that works with the angelic realm. And I learned that, I think, back in 2009. And it's an energy healing. And they work with different angels and bringing that through. But yeah, it's a beautiful modality. Yeah, but my heart actually went right to QHHT. That was where, as soon as I heard about that one, I was like, okay, that's it. I have to learn that one. So I was on a quest learning all different healing modalities. But yeah, that's what that is. And they're all beautiful. They all work with the same divine energy. So they're all really beautiful.
That's awesome. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Now, Luann has raised her hand.
Okay.
It's a question. What was it? Let's see. Let's go back there. Okay. The one says, has anyone in your family experienced what you have experienced or similar experiences?
That's kind of hard to answer because I grew up in a family where they really didn't talk about this kind of thing. So I suspect now that I know what I know, and I've had communications with my grandparents, I believe my grandmother on my mother's side. Not that she's had, I don't believe UFO ET experiences, but I feel that she was, had connections in like spiritual kind of connections in that way. Yeah, but I don't know for sure about anybody else. I just have my suspicions about certain things, but I don't know for sure. Not having talked to anyone really about it. So.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Does have any other questions? Betty. Okay. Thank you. All right. So Betty Guadagno.
Thank you, Betty.
Betty, are you there?
Yes.
Okay. Can you ask your question?
Sorry, I just wanted to say thank you to Catherine. Thanks for being vulnerable and sharing your experiences. They were beautiful to listen to and very grateful for you.
Thank you.
Catherine did a quantum hypnosis healing on me, and we got to do it in person. We both live in New York, and it was just a completely transformative and amazing experience for me. And just to feel her energy and to see her home where all of these experiences happened, and get to see like the pictures and real tangible proof of something much bigger than us. So I'm so grateful that you are part of my path. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you, Betty. That was
Thank you.
really- Thank you.
Okay, so this is Luann and Betty. Luann and Bethany Silver have questions. Oh, I guess that's not Bethany. You're next.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. So many questions. I wondered, Catherine, if you can share what the ETs want. Like, is there something that they want from us, or they just want to help us?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I mean, what they want is they get so happy when we are not afraid of them. And they want to be part of our lives because they want to help us. And so they really want us to continue to evolve and continue to grow spiritually. Because, there's so much fear in this world. And they're so happy when they see people that are working on themselves and people that are open and seeking, and people that are connecting to their own unique divinity within themselves. And the ones that I have experienced are just beautiful beings, and they know when they know when we're sad, like what I've experienced so many times where, something will happen and then I'll have a thought and then I'll be outside and I'll look up and there they are, or they'll show me in some kind of a synchronistic way that they're with me. And I know that that's true for everybody. It's just that we've been raised in such fear of them. And we also have this idea of what they look like, which they don't. They look very different from what we're taught. I think when we think about ET, unless I like ET from the movie, that little guy from the movie, he's so cute. But when we think about, ETs, the first thing that comes to many people's minds are the grays with the big heads and the big black eyes, and they're scary, and they have no you can't feel a heart with them, and that is not been my experience at all. I don't have a connection to the grays. I have had connections to many different types of beings, and they are all beautiful, heart-centered beings, and they want us to also evolve into our rightful place on earth, which is understanding that we're all connected and that we are all one, so they really want us to step up and meet them, where they are, really. And they're coming to a lot of people. A lot of people are having experiences with them. So, yeah, exciting.
Bethany?
Yeah, that's fascinating. I do. I said I had a lot of questions.
It's
I'm
fine.
sorry. But since no one else is raising their hand, I feel like I can ask. Catherine, these ETs, are they spirit beings or are they living physical lives? And if they're living physical lives, do they have the same type of expectation that they would die, like our physical beings' bodies will die? And if so, do they also evolve into or transition into a spiritual life after their ET experience?
Thank you. Good question. Well, many of the ones that I have seen and experienced are interdimensional beings. So they can show up in the 3D reality and look very 3D, like look solid. Like, remember I talked about that man that I was friends with, and I saw him as I would see you, in walking in the parking lot. They can look that way to us. But they're interdimensional, so they can go in and out of this dimension. And what I learned was that consciousness has it really is all about consciousness, because a lot of these experiences are through consciousness. So once I learned how to quiet my mind and meditate and go into that quiet state and really connect with God and my own inner divinity, that's when things start to open up, and there's more of a connection. They do have, some of them do have lives, okay, like that are here and also on different planets. Some are on different planets, some are in different dimensions. It depends on which ones. There's so many, and they're all so different that I can't really say, one thing about all of them, because they're all so different. But yes, they do have lives. Many of them have lives that are much longer than ours, and many of them get to decide when they're done with their mission and whatever it is that they're. So, yeah, but some of them can look very 3D, and they can appear very solid, but then they can also, like I said, they can disappear.
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bethany and Catherine and Kathy Trueheart.
Yeah, back again. Okay, so you say that they really want to connect with people, and it's like, I'm one of these wannabes that I have tried my whole life. I've taken classes, how to connect with your guides, how to do this. I'm the most spiritual person I know. I've meditated for 50 years, and and even different mediums that I've been around, they all say, "Oh my God, we should be coming to you. You can do this." Why? But it's like it doesn't happen for me, and it's like every day I pray and I send love to the galaxy and open myself up. If anyone, I'm not grasping, but if anyone chooses, to share their information with me, I am an open channel. I would be so grateful. I'd be very happy to, and nothing happens.
Nothing.
So,
Okay. Well, I suspect that things are happening, but you may not be aware of it. So a lot of times we get things in our dreams, and our dreams are really, we're actually out of our body when we're sleeping, and we're doing all kinds of things. So I suspect that you are having a lot of experiences. It's just that you're not aware of it yet at this point. But, what I found very helpful for me is that time right before you go to sleep at night, and that time in the morning as you're waking up. Those are two very precious times where I, feel like I'm really connect in with my inner awareness and my team. And so I would encourage you to use those times, those called the hypnagogic state, and that's when you're connected to your higher self. And let them know at that point you want to remember them in your dreams. Say, please come and show me yourselves in a dream and let me remember it. I want to remember it. And then what I would do is I would start documenting, writing down my dream. Yeah, because the more you pay attention to these things, the more it happens. So writing these things down, what you pay attention to grows. So when I write down my dreams, they know, oh, she's paying attention. Let's give her some more. Oh, look. And they actually get a real kick out of it too. Like they're having fun, just like, we are down here with them. So the more that you track it and journal it, or keep track of it, write it down, connect with them, and don't give up. So if you don't hear from them right away, just keep at it, every night, ask them. And eventually you'll have a dream, or you'll have a visitation. And the way you can tell a visitation from a dream, a visitation is something that, happens where you'll have communication with either a spirit or an ET being, and it'll be so real that you'll remember it 10 years from now, just as vivid as if it had just happened a second ago. That's how you know it's a visitation.
Right. That sounds good. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Okay, Greg, you're there.
Hi.
Hi, Greg.
Hey, so I guess my mom was quick. She left early, Joyce. About dreams, is it possible that hi Adam, that's Adam. Is it possible that the living can appear in your dreams too? Like you're having a telepathic communication? I've heard of that. And can you do it intentionally, or is it?
Can you do it intentionally?
Yeah.
Is that what yeah. Yeah, I think you can. I think you can. Yeah, I have dreams sometimes about the living, and I have seen my grandchildren before they've come. I've seen, people that are going to be people in my family that are, going to be having more children or buying a house, and it ends up coming true. So yeah, you can have dreams that are very telling, and that's why I encourage people to write down their dreams, because over time, you'll be able to tell, even if the dream seems like, there's something a little weird about it or off, that it's not like this reality, but there's actually a message coming through it. You'll be able to tell whether that's a message that's like a premonition, or whether it's some kind of a message that's coming through that you need to work on, like for your own healing and growth, for spiritual growth. Or if it's something that's coming through with somebody in your life that maybe isn't that good for you to be around. You can get a lot of information from your dreams.
And that's my son laughing in the background.
Oh, he's so cute. Aw.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. That's one of the reasons why I was nudged to place that chapter in my book, was so people could practice as far as channeling and learning, or just practicing channeling, because it is available to everyone.
Yes, it is. And, I encourage people to do some automatic writing. Okay. And so if you just quiet your mind, and it doesn't have to be anything complex, you just quiet your mind, take a couple nice breaths, pay attention to the breath, let your thoughts go. And then just take your pen in your hand and just start writing. And even if the first thing you write is, I don't really know what I'm writing or why I'm writing this, but I'm just going to keep writing until something comes through. And then you will hear, there will be a shift, and then just keep writing and it'll just come through you. The thing I recommend before doing that is always call in the light, call in God, call in your team for protection, and just ask them to, tell them you want to connect, and you want to connect with your higher self. And that's a really, it's one of the more easy ways of connecting is through the writing. A lot of people that are writers and poets and artists, are really actually channels. They're actually channeling, because when that writing comes through, and you'll know that it's channeled writing when it's coming through so fast that you almost can't keep up with it, and you really don't even remember what you said. You have to read it back in order to remember what was said. And it won't sound like your normal way of speaking. It'll sound like it'll be more, it'll have like a higher wisdom, so, and you can just write questions. You can ask questions, if you want, on the paper, like put down like 3 questions, and then just see what happens on each page. Write a question.
That's how I started with the questions. And I would get either yes, no, very short sentences. Then
Yeah.
they, to a point where I actually had to ask permission to go to the bathroom because they were just kept on writing.
Yeah.
It's funny.
Or another good question is, what do I need to know at this time that is in my highest and best interest, and also for others? And then just let it go. Just let the writing come through.
Very good. Okay, Bethany. All right. Go ahead, Bethany.
I did, it's funny. I had a series of events happen in the fall where I had friends who I hadn't talked to in a long time call me and tell me, I had this dream that you had a baby. And I'm done with that part of my life. And my youngest is 14 and my oldest is 20. She'll be 27 next week, right? And then I had this dream where I had a very strange dream, and it was I talked to a friend of mine, and she said, "You're not having a baby," because part of it was having a baby. She said, "You're getting a new job," and so and it turns out I did get a new job, and it's the best job that I've ever had, and I'm like so blown away by it. How do I say thank you? How do I express? I'm sure that Spirit knows that I'm extremely grateful and honored to have this job.
Yes.
But is there like a formal way that I could say thank you, or they just know?
Oh, they know. No, they know. But just saying thank you, that's all. Just thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah.
God.
The attitude of gratitude is important to express.
Yes, absolutely. I love it. Yeah, and this symbology of, having a baby, right? It can mean so many things. And then after you got that job, you're like, oh, okay, that's what they meant. They meant this job. Because that's a big undertaking, right? Taking on a new job, taking on, that's a whole life in itself, really.
Yeah. But I just didn't get it. It wasn't until I told my friend Leslie about it, and she said, "Oh, that's not a real baby. That's a job."
Yeah. Yeah. For years, I had dreams like that where I am having, I'm protecting my baby. There's this baby that I'm either protecting or I'm trying to, grow, or, and I've been aware, because I'm past that stage, well past that stage in my life now. My kids are in their 30s, my older ones. But I've been aware that the baby is actually, it could be my inner child, but I'm also a little past that too, where I knew that the baby was actually my mission and what I'm here to do. So that's my work in the world,
Right.
So yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you.
And Bethany, how else would you have been able to appreciate it as much if you hadn't had the challenges in the previous jobs, right?
Very true.
All right, Deborah Kaiser. Deborah?
Oh, hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, Deb.
Hi. Hi. Thank you so much for this evening tonight. And Catherine, I'm just so grateful I got to hear a little bit more of some of your experiences. I got to hear in a little bit more detail. And I just Catherine, I've mentioned to Catherine before in one or two of her groups, just very briefly, of a couple of experiences I had as a young girl over a period of a couple of years off and on with these small blue beings. And my experience with that was they were very telepathic and very benevolent. And something I carried, forth with me all these years. And it was it was Catherine's group. I think when you maybe first early started one of your groups, that I very timidly shared just a teeny bit. And I just want to say, Catherine holds such a beautiful, safe, welcoming, kind, inviting space for experiencers. And it just, yeah, I'm just very appreciative and grateful for you. And thank you for tonight.
Oh, thank you, Deborah. Thank you. Yeah, that was really sweet. And I always love when you are part of those groups. And yeah, the groups have been really helpful for me too, because back in 2016, when I started having all this UFO activity over my house, in my brain, right? And I'm like, oh my God, I wonder if anybody else is having these experiences. I can't be the only one, So I started the group at my local library, UFO ET Experiencers. And lo and behold, the first meeting were 20 people, and they were all so interested, and many of them were having experiences and paranormal experiences and all different kinds. So I was just tickled at that. And then I kept it going until COVID hit. And then after COVID shut the library down, and then, synchronicities happen where IANDS sent me an email, asked me if I wanted to be a facilitator. And I wasn't even really part of IANDS. I didn't know that IANDS was, we're looking into people who are having spiritual experiences too. So just opened up a whole new world, and it's been wonderful ever since. So now we're on Zoom. Everything's on Zoom, which is great. And we have people from all over the world. We have somebody from Japan, New Zealand, I mean, all different countries that come in, and it's just really wonderful. Yeah, just lovely. Thank you, Deborah, for your share.
We are almost at 8:30. I'm going to stop our recording just so that we end at a good note here.